We really decided to turn to readers and the public to help us out. So in return, the deal here is that we are going to make these documents public. Whatever we get, we're going to make public. Any stories that we do on these documents, we're going to make sure is public, free to read, not behind a paywall.
Welcome back to Closer Look across the Village Media Network and, of course, available wherever you get your favorite podcast with Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief. I'm Scott Sexsmith. As always, Derek Turner at the helm tonight. Okay, this is kind of like a telethon night here.
Yeah, it would be kind of like that, wouldn't it?
Would be.
Yes.
It would be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no entertainment.
No.
Other than you, but, you know. Well, really.
I think we all know who the entertainer in this group is.
Neither one of us. I think it's Derek. Okay, so let's get into this crowdfunding thing. It's important.
Yes, the Skills Development Fund.
Yes.
It is the only thing being talked about at Queen's Park in the fall sitting. This is one of the Ford government signature policies. It's a multi-billion-dollar fund that gives taxpayer money to train to companies, to organizations, to unions to help train workers and help them with career path training, things like that. It's pumped up. They love this program. But it's been hugely controversial in large part because of the reporting that our team at the Trillium Village Media's Bureau of Queen's Park has been doing, really just exposing the political connections that a lot of these people, a lot of these companies and organizations have that are getting this money. And it's kind of, it's interesting because I was rereading our coverage this morning. And it kind of started with a bit of a trickle. I think that's the best way to describe it. We were reporting back in early September about various companies and organizations that were getting this money and their connections and some questions that it raised. And they did about 4 or 5 different pieces that were just really great journalism. And then the Auditor General dropped this whopper of a report in early October, basically validating everything they said about how there was some – and they had – obviously the Auditor General has way more access to the inner workings of this program than the Trillium does, but validating all the reporting they're doing, especially the idea that there were – applicants who were getting low scores from the bureaucrats. The civil servants are saying this is not a great application.
But getting the money.
Anyway because the labor minister, whoever it was signing off on it. So this has become a major issue, and so the Trillium has been reporting on it like crazy. Everyone else at Queen's Park in the press gallery is reporting on it. I mean, I read about it in the Globe today, in the Star today. Like, it is the story at Queen's Park. Yeah. Doug, to give you the quick hits, Doug Ford has been defending his labor minister, David Piccini, saying
and says he's not getting rid of him.
Not getting rid of him. He's not going anywhere. The opposition is foaming at the mouth. It's pretty much leading question period every day. This story. And a lot of it's been built around freedom of information requests, FOI requests, and I think most members of the public have no idea what that is. But it's basically. Anyone can file a request with the government asking for publicly available records that aren't necessarily published, but they're publicly available. So you can pay your fee. It's usually $5 or a small amount to make an application, and you can get these documents. They often will take a long, long time. There's all kinds of problems with both provincial and federal FOI systems. They don't work very well. They take a long time. And in some cases, they'll come back with a wildly astronomical fee to get this because it takes search time and effort. They have to pay people to do this. So basically, we're at the next round of where the Trillium team has filed a bunch of FOIs, honing in on some of the companies that have been the subject of this reporting, some other issues, some other data that related to this. And the total bill, Scott, is like almost $12,000 to get these documents. So Jessica Smith-Cross, the editor-chief of the Trillium, and Charlie Pinkerton kind of came up with this idea of we should crowdfund this.
Absolutely.
And pitched it, and we loved it because we love crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's a great idea. So we basically yesterday, Monday afternoon, asked our readers across the network if they wanted to help support our reporting on this particular issue and help fund this bill for FOI requests. And it's been really great so far. It's been really amazing to see the responses that we see, not just the money that people are contributing, but also just some of the comments and kind of why they want us to keep going what we're doing. So I think what we're going to do today is we're going to have Jessica come on the show, and we're going to talk about that, what we're doing, but just kind of give everyone kind of a rewind of all the stuff that's happened in the last few months at Queen's Park and why this story is so important.
If you follow Ontario politics, you've likely heard of the Skills Development Fund. It's one of the Ford government's signature policies a multi-billion-dollar program that gives tax dollars to companies and organizations to provide training programs and other support for workers. But the fund has been a flashpoint of controversy during the fall sitting of the Ontario Legislature, in large part because of the investigative reporting of the Trillium, Village Media's Queen's Park Bureau. We're going to talk about all of that and more, and what we're asking readers to do to help us with our reporting with our very own Jessica Smith-Cross, the editor-in-chief of the Trillium. Jess, thanks as always for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Hi, Scott. Hi, Fisco. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, before we dig into the details, Jess, let's get some of the basics out of the way. For those who are hearing about all of this for the very first time, what is the Skills Development Fund?
This is a $2.5 billion pot of money that the Ford government has set aside to give out to groups. This is unions, companies, nonprofit, in order for them to provide training opportunities for workers. So improving skills, getting trade certifications, stuff like that. The government is partway through doing this. It's given out most, but not all of that money so far.
All right, Jess, so your team started digging into the fund quite a long time ago. What triggered your curiosity?
Well, two things, really. One was an FOI request that one of our reporters, Charlie Pinkerton, had done about a specific recipient of this funding in relation to another story. And another was this growing sort of tips from the sources that we talked to that this fund was basically a slush fund. So some of that had to do with big announcements for recipients of this money, also then coming out and endorsing the PCs in the subsequent election, and just tips from people who knew that there was something about this that maybe we should be looking into. And that's what we did.
We're going to talk some more about FOIs and get all the details about that. But it kind of, as I was going back just again, reading all our coverage again, it kind of hit starting in September, right, Jess? There were a few stories in September that were exclusive Trillium pieces. Just give us an overview of what kind of the stuff you reported on in the early days.
Yeah, this was to try to follow up on those tips about it being kind of slushy. So we looked at the... First, we got a list of who got the funding. That was harder than you might expect it to be. This information wasn't publicly available at first. So we got the list of who got what for the most part. Some of it we still don't have, and then started looking at who they are. Who are these groups? What connections do they have to the government and to ministers and to the PC party? So we highlighted some groups that we had recognized as companies or other groups that have been supportive of the government, that have had connections to the Premier's office and things like that. So there's a whole series of just smaller articles. This group with this connection got this money. Then the Auditor General released a report, and that really kicked things into overdrive.
Yeah, let's talk about that report. What did she discover, Jess?
Yeah, so she had access to absolutely everything, which included documents on the ministry's internal process for how the grants were chosen. So lots of people have been applying to this fund over the years. Only some get the money in the end. And what she determined was that the ministry, like civil service, non-political people, had been ranking the applications on a numerical scale based on how good they are, high, medium, low. But then she found the minister's office had gone in and not given funding to highly ranked applications, but given funding to medium and low. In fact, they'd done this more than half of the time in the later rounds of this grant program. She also flagged that these applications that had been boosted up tended more often than not to have lobbyists.
How validating was that, Jess? Was there a moment when you look at that report and say, okay, we were on the right track?
Yeah, it was. It was one of the early stories that we did. This one company that, Charlie had focused on early on, he had gotten some information that it had been a low-ranked application that was pumped up by the minister's office, but we didn't realize then that it would be more than just sort of that one. She said this was on a pretty wide scale, and that's what's become the focus of the controversy.
And there's one quote from a report that stuck out. Remind me what it was. It's not fair. What was the quote?
Not fair, not transparent, and not accountable.
That's correct. Okay, and the hits kept coming afterwards from the Trillium. We saw different stories about how more than half of the SDF grants handed out in the latest round went to groups led by donors to Doug Ford's Conservative Party. There was those kind of things. And of course, there was a bombshell reporting on David Piccini, the labor minister. his trip to Paris, and his great view at a Toronto Maple Leafs game. Can you speak to those stories and how relevant they were, what they showed?
Yeah. So, the day that Auditor General report came out, the minister wasn't there. He was off on a trip somewhere. And the following weekend, he was in Paris at the wedding of a lobbyist who had represented one of the Skills Development Fund recipients. That company is called Keel Digital Solutions. And we reported on this. And then after that, reported that the Minister Puccini had also sat in what we called the glass seats, the expensive seats at a Leafs game right behind the glass, with a director of that same company. Now, this was before he was the Minister of Labor and before he gave them the money. But what it showed us and why it seems to be important at Queen's Park is it does suggest he's got a relationship with these people, and there are rules about giving money to people you have a relationship with. Whether he or not he should have excused himself or set up an ethics screen is a very live issue here. Mm-hmm. And then he also identified that this was one of the companies that had scored low and that he had decided to fund. He did a radio interview where he described, this is a good example of something he should intervene and provide funding for, even though the Ministry of Civil Servants had scored it low. They provide a mental health software platform to Peel Police. Fast forward a little bit later, and we got a tip from someone that this company had been audited by the Ministry of Colleges and Universities for a lot of funding that they'd been given to use their platform for students. Mm-hmm. And that this audit had triggered a financial forensic audit, which had then been forwarded to the Ontario Provincial Police for potential investigation. So this has been the latest bombshell, the latest explosion at Queen's Park, that this company had whatever's in that forensic audit, and we do not know what it is, was that this government decided in the middle of all this that they had to send it to the Ontario Provincial Police.
Yeah, which is a fascinating twist. And again, exclusive Trillium reporting that first broke that story. There's so many tentacles to this, Jess, because even now I think yesterday that company came out and said, we want to see this audit that everyone's talking about because we're fighting against ghosts, I think was their quote.
Yeah, they've been saying that, throughout this whole process of being audited, they were told there was no red flags, nothing that should preclude them from getting more funding from the ministry, continuing on with what they were doing. And then all of a sudden they were blindsided by this. They apparently learned about this through our reporting that it had been referred to the police. We're still trying to learn more. We got questions today all about, okay, so the Ministry of Colleges and Universities is doing an audit. They decided they need to do a forensic audit. What did they know at the time that the Ministry of Labor was deciding to give this company money? The Ministry of Health did as well. What did they know then? Did one ministry tell the other or not? We're not getting a lot of clear answers on that right now.
And you would assume they would be speaking to each other and someone would let the other person know, the other ministry know, but we just don't know that.
Yeah, one would hope.
Jess, let's get to the opposition. What has the reaction been?
Oh, boy. They've been talking.
Where to start?
They've been talking about it a lot, nonstop. Queen's Park question period has begun with this every day since it came back. And they've focused on different aspects of it. Our reporting from other media outlets who are also doing a great job, it has been the thing that they are yelling about at Queen's Park for weeks.
It really has dominated. Is there anything else people are talking about at Queen's Park besides this right now?
Yes, there are other things going on. There's an education bill that's pretty controversial that's about to pass. This has been the fiery one, though.
Yeah, well, it has all the legs. I can see why. We're going to keep this going. Obviously, you and your team, just so I make sure I mention everyone, there's yourself, Charlie Pinkerton's been on this, Jack Howen's been on this, Aidan Shamandi from Toronto Today has been chipping in. Is there anyone else I'm forgetting?
We've got the newsletter team, Catherine and Steve. That's been a whole team-wide thing. And some of the locals our local colleagues at Village Media Outlets have contributed on things that have been happened in their communities as well.
Yeah, it's been wild to kind of watch it grow into what it is. And obviously, like I was saying, your team is going to continue reporting on this. You filed a whole other round of FOIs. Give us a sense of what you're looking for next, Jess.
Yeah, so FOIs have been a big part of this. So that's when we submit a request in writing for government documents to the government ministry or entity who we think has them. So we make a request. Can you give us, when I talked about having to go through a process to get which company got what money from the Skills Development Fund in what round, that's an FOI request we needed to use to get that. We've done FOI requests for some of the earlier rounds that they wouldn't just give us the answers to, the funding numbers to. We've done FOI requests for the civil service scores that I talked about for all of the applicants. They haven't, because they won't tell us all of those either. We've done a FOI request for what are called the KPIs. So this is sort of the performance indicators of how well these groups that got funding did in the end, according to the reporting structure that goes to the ministry. And then we've done more FOIs for emails in the ministry about some of the recipients of this fund that we identified as having a close connection to the government, to try to piece together how and why they were funded. This thing I mentioned right at the beginning, Charlie looked at this one company first for another reason. He learned about that way back then because of an FOI requesting emails within the ministry and minister's office about this company. So we've asked for that for some of the companies that have come up a lot in our reporting, including the one I mentioned that had the forensic audit that has been referred to the police.
So Jess, I know that you've received some estimates to gather all of these documents. How much will it cost to get that?
Well, north of $10,000. I think. We have an FOI budget. We do FOIs regularly. We haven't done crowdfunding before, but these ones for emails in particular came back with very high cost estimates. They've told us that these estimates are based on the volume of documents that they believe are there. We don't know what's in them until we get the request. We don't know if there's smoking guns or not or nothing. That's sort of what you do. But if you want to tell the story of how did this group get this money, this is how we do it.
So Jess, for people who don't know the process as to why it costs so much, because the obvious question would be, well, we know there are people that are FOI officers and this is their job that they get paid to do, but why in the end does it cost so much?
The time it takes the ministry to get the documents and release them. So there's a fee schedule for this. They do searches of people's email addresses because that's what we're asking for, right? So the civil servants or the political staff or whoever it is have to go through and search their inboxes for the name of this company and give up what they have. And then there is a process where the coordinators have to decide what they can and can't release. There are rules around this. You can't release information that would identify somebody's personal information and a whole host of other exceptions. So there's a charge for the time it takes for these requests to be prepared.
So Jess, we got to let up to all this in this last 20 minutes, but we're asking a big ask of our readers. I think it's a great idea. What are we doing?
We're asking for your money. We talked about this when I started getting these really high fee estimates back. I joked to Charlie, our reporter here, oh man, we should crowdfund for this. Because we want the documents, and we know that we have readers out there who care very much about this story, who care very much about government transparency and accountability, about local journalism and all those good things. And when these requests came back that were higher than I could just sign off for with the budget that I have for this thing, we really decided to turn to readers and the public to help us out. So in return, the deal here is that we are going to make these documents public. Whatever we get, we're going to make public. Any stories that we do on these documents, we're going to make sure is public, free to read, not behind a paywall. So if people step forward and help us get these documents, those documents are going to go right back out to the public.
What's fascinating about this is this show's coming out Tuesday evening. We put up this article on the Trillium and across the chain on Monday afternoon, telling people what we're doing and asking them for their help. And there's been quite a lot of response. I don't know the exact details yet in the numbers, but a lot of people have chimed in, have shown their support, have given contributions to this. And I have to say there's been a lot of positive remarks too. I mean, the people are saying to us, basically keep going. This is important, that, corruption's unacceptable are some of the comments, that the reporting on the Skills Development Fund from the Trillium has been, quote, excellent. Looking forward to even more of it when the FOIs are completed, that we need journalists to be serving the public in this way. this job can grind you down. I'm telling you, there are days I walk out of here and I wonder if we're going to make it to the next day. But this is honestly, it's been a little ray of sunshine for me, just reading this and seeing that people actually care about the work we're doing. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, same way. Watching them come in and people are giving like 10, 50, $100 sort of thing, giving what they can. And then when they decide to include a comment like, the journalism is worth it. It means a lot to have people think that way about what we do.
Absolutely. I think it's great. It's a great testament to you guys as well. We take it for granted, the great reporting you do, and you've been doing it now for a few years for Village. But it's a daily thing. I mean, you guys are not only covering the day-to-day things, but always great enterprising reporting, great exclusive journalism, great investigative journalism. And to see that there are lots of readers out there that are seeing it. And then, it's great that it runs on the Trillium. A lot of these stories have run on all our local net sites as well. It's a great thing. And, like I said, we get lost in that day to day. But I think it's hugely important, the work you're doing. And it's nice to see that the readers are feeling the same way.
Totally.
So what we're basically asking for, Scott, is for everybody to go on, read these. We're going to put the link up here showing where you can contribute.
Yes.
The link to the story explaining all the stuff Jess talked about, how we're doing it, why we're doing it. And definitely check out the trillium.ca and go back and read all the stories again. I actually reread a lot of them this morning, just preparing for this. I've read them all as they come along, but it's quite a mountain of stuff. And it's an amazing journey, like I said, Jess, because you have, when you first start chipping away at a big story like this, you're kind of going into it cold, right? You're getting these tips, you're finding this information, and you're getting out what you can. And you guys had multiple stories like that came out, and then all of a sudden the Auditor General drops this bombshell,
right,
like I said, that validates the reporting you've been doing. I'm rambling, Jess, but what I wanted to ask you was, what's the reaction been at Queen's Park? Have you heard from government officials about this crowdfunding campaign? Have you heard from other journalists?
I've seen a couple of other journalists share the link to the crowdfunding campaign online. I have not heard from the government about the crowdfunding campaign. We hear from them about our reporting all the time, and there's a dialogue there that goes on, and we're trying to get information out of them, but no one's brought up the crowdfunding campaign to me so far.
For sure. And I want to be clear too, we're asking for contributions from readers. Can you talk about that? We're not asking from anyone else.
Yeah, we've got a disclaimer up there. So if you're a political party or a politically involved group, we're not going to accept your money. We'll refund it. We're looking for individuals who care about democracy and journalism and all this stuff. So
good stuff. Jess, anything we didn't cover tonight? Skills development fund or otherwise that we should mention?
Just that it's been it's been very satisfying to do this reporting, to do it within Village Media, along with our colleagues at all of the sites around Ontario. And with you guys here, we're pretty happy to have this home to do this reporting and keep it going.
Well, there's no question about it, Jess. You and the team are the best, so keep it up. There's Jessica Smith-Cross, Editor-in-Chief at the Trillium. Thanks, Jess. Good to see you tonight.
Good to see you too. Take care.
Is it ever nice to see the comments that readers are adding as they're making their contributions towards this?
Yeah, you think I'm lying when I say some days you wonder. It's not an easy. We're not heroic or anything, but it's not easy what we do sometimes.
It is not.
You're trying to uncover truth. You're trying to report things factually, report things accurately, and it's a lot of work. And it's important work, and we feel it's important. But I can tell you, we rarely hear from people saying, "Hey, great job, you're doing it." We usually hear from people saying, A, we're going to sue you, or B, we're not happy with the way that you've reported this is not fair. And we know why we do the things we do, and it's nice to see that other people see it as well. And like I said to Jess, the Trillium is still relatively new. It's a few years old. It is now the biggest bureau at Queen's Park of any news organization in Ontario. And they've done fantastic work from the day they started. They hit the ground running from the day they started. It's nice to see that readers are saying, "Hey, I know you. I read your things, and they're important. It's important what you're doing." Okay, so before we go, where can people make their contributions? Yeah, you go to the homepage of the Trillium. The button is there. You can read about the story, and it has all the information. You can find the pieces on your local site. And we'll also, in the write-up to this episode, in the write-up, you'll find the button as well and the link to everything that you need to find.
Perfect. Closer look at villagemedia.ca. What do you think of the Skills Development Fund? Let us know. Your thoughts are important to us. And as always, check out our brand new website, closerlookpodcast.ca. Tonight's show, as always, produced by Derek Turner. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. We appreciate your time tonight. Let's do it again tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.